if you need to.
Starting live video. Ellipsis. Starting live video.
Just
Ellipsis.
passionate about,
Finish. Button.
anybody that I
Comment.
talk to
Dim. Button.
about beat
Comment.
baseball
Button.
or whatever, or how to build a team or this, that, and the other. I'm pretty passionate about it, so feel free to come.
Yeah, I hear you. I already have us on live, but it's still like 5 minutes before the hour. You know how I do. I like to start a little early.
Right. Yeah. I was gonna say, man, it's gonna be so passionate. It's gonna come through the show tonight, man. It's pretty real, pretty raw, man. I mean, I call this show's the big chair. I'm in the big chair, man.
Hey, so before, since we got a heck of time, if I would have known it was so early, I might not have started yet. But we could hash this out, since I know I got I rubbed you the wrong way with it. My nickname, calling you Shutout. Now, I admit I don't remember where it started from, and I'll admit the dogs never shut you out, but whether it's at an NBBA tournament or at like the OKC tournament or something, somewhere between like 01 and 04, were you shut out by someone?
Our team has never been shut out.
Dude, why would there'd be no humor to me calling.
Maybe I struck out the side and didn't score any runs.
Dude, striking out a side don't mean nothing to me. I wouldn't call anybody shutout. I wouldn't call a pitcher shutout just for striking out a side. There ain't no humor in that.
Shut out, man. In the 20-year history, never been shut out.
Dude, I don't know why. I still dispute that, man. Some team out there, they know they shut you out. Come forward. Tell me who you are.
Yeah, they can come to me with it, but I looked at all the records, man, and never been shut out, man.
It even could have just been like an exhibition game with another Indy team or something. I just heard about it at some point somewhere.
But the lowest score we've scored was 1 point against the Dogs in that 2-1 epic game.
Dude, that was a great game. I'm with you there. That was 2002 in Chicago. That was
right.
For me personally. That was Dave Benny's coming out party, because that guy had like 27 putouts in that game. I swear to God, yeah, we couldn't hit it.
That's the fewest runs we've ever scored as a team or in a team. We've never been.
Come on now.
Positive.
You've been held to one run more. You guys weren't always great, Darnell. Man, some of these.
We scored runs. We may have scored in single digits sometimes, but we've never been shut out like a goose egg. No.
Some of these newer teams might think you guys were always the great Thunder, but I was there at the beginning, man. You guys have more than one run game.
Trials and tribulations. I mean, you got to go through baby steps, man, to get to where you got to get to.
No, I agree with that. We're going to talk about that for sure. I agree with that totally.
You got how and I've been listening to the show every week. You guys, you got to hone your craft and work on your craft. I have a craft to work on all the time. I mean, I'm working on my craft constantly.
4:58 p.m. That game you brought up a few times, that 2-1 game in 02 in Chicago. That two things came out of that game for me personally. That one was I knew Dave Benny. I'd met him 2 years before that in Taiwan, hanging out with Hoodlum, and big shout out to Hood. Although he probably don't even listen to this show, knucklehead. But that and Seth Bam Bam came up with a good nickname for Greg Parra, our pitcher at the time, who was serving up all those ground balls. That was the day Greg became Ground Ball Greg. That was our team cheer. Ground Ball Greg. Ground Ball Greg.
I've been, several times I've been called Bob, though, which is like, hey, pitching ain't easy, but I've been called Bob a lot of times. Even, just a lot of times, hey, sometimes it's right into sweet spots. Sometimes.
What is Bob? Bottom of bat?
Bottom of the bat.
Yeah, that was another nickname we had for Greg when we were hitting ground balls. We call him but we didn't, not Bob, it was Bataba for bottom of the bat. Bataba.
But I love Greg, though. I love
Greg Parr is one of the greatest human beings that's ever been in this world.
him.
He's the nicest guy in the world.
459.
And should never have tolerated all the cruelty that Bam Bam and I have thrown his way. Speaking of Greg, I'll take my phone and show everybody. I got my Carolina Warriors jersey on. Actually, last roster I was ever on, I failed them. I didn't make it to the World Series, but I was supposed to be part of their team in 13 and 14, actually. But I was on their roster in 13, and I failed them. I did not make it to the World Series, but I got my Carolina Warriors jersey on right
Greg
now.
and I are big Carolina fans, and
5 p.m.
we he's just a really neat guy. I would like to get in touch with him. I would love to talk to him and see how he's doing. During these times, you always go to your want to shoot a text to somebody just to see how they're doing.
I should give you his number just to punish him. Just kidding. Gotta start the music, Darnell. I gotta start the music, Buck. Hold on, Buck. Time to go. Yeah. Welcome back to another episode of the Beatball Blues Show. This is going to be a crazy fun week. Been looking forward to it. I know that some of you out there have also, just to see the verbal battle that might go on. I am your 2000 offensive MVP, 5-time world champion, Neil McGet-It-Dunner. And this week I have brought with me the 4-time champion as a head coach of the Indy Thunder, as well as 5-time total champion as he won a champion with the Indianapolis Eagles back then, right? The Eagles.
A whole different regime.
Yeah, but he was part of the 1990 championship Eagles. Darnell Booker, welcome to the show, Big Book. Appreciate you joining me.
Thanks for having me, Neil. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.
Man, this dude, this youngin', Kyle Kennedy, man, reaches out to me like, I don't know about your 1990 championship, man. I wasn't out there making beatball history when this dude was hanging from his mama's teat, man. He's gonna come to me, tell me about beatball history? Come on now. No, I gotta be nice to Kyle. I'm hoping one day I could get one of the 10,000 Easton Black Maxes he's hoarding over there. I might be able to pry one away from him. I want to get me a new Black Max for my big old age comeback, Darnell, man. JT got me swinging the bat. Mikey got me working out. Seth got me fired up about defense. Man, I got to work my way back, Book.
That's awesome. Hey, go and go get through the regiment and do what you do, man. We'd love to have you back on the field.
We'll see about all that. I do want to be back at the tournament itself, though. I do look forward to those days. But, man, Buck, I wanted to bring you on and talk about team building and just really sticking to it more than anything, because if there's anything you have done with your Indy Thunder, you have stuck with it. But I want to jump back to that 1990 team for a second, because we actually, the team I played for at the time, the East Bay Blaze, I was a member of that team. That was the first year I played with the Blaze. First year, Bam Bam and I were ever teammates together. First of many. But how, because I don't remember that team having been around for a real long time. Like, how long were you with that team? Like, when did you actually start out in beatball?
1985, age 18. The Eagles, and now they had so many names. Like in '84, they were the Rebels, and then they were the Indy Rebels. But I knew about them because they practiced at the blind school a little bit on the weekends, and then at the Indiana School for Blind. And then in '85, I got introduced to. Like I said, I went down there and saw a little practice in '84, but really wasn't. I was a little 17-year-old kid at the time. I was focused on my senior year coming up, so. Doing it, but as soon as like in '85, right off the graduation stage, Jan Tribecan asked me to come out and look at the team, and said that she has a team called the Indy Eagles, and that's where I met a lot of people like Ron Brown and Jerry Wendell and his former wife Karen Wendell and a bunch of guys, and the late Harold Rim, and just we had some good players and stuff like that. So basically 1985, and the Indy Eagles were around probably for about 7 years to like 91, 92, because Jan, who was the general manager and everything that ran the team, her job took her to
Detroit,
Michigan,
yeah, somewhere in Michigan
with AT&T, and then after that, from 1 to about 97, 98, we played. I mean, a bunch of us guys. We played. We played with some makeshift teams like the Chicago teams. We got with them, the Windy City teams and stuff like that. There was just some teams we played with, and I'm like, so beat ball was kind of dormant in Indianapolis from like 91 until I said, hey, I'm just gonna take a leap of faith and just start a team. So I went around looking at a bunch of, World Series and stuff like that. So, and I said, I'm just going to go with it. And I sit down with if you look up the word loyalty in the dictionary, this guy has been with me through it all. Ron Brown.
Downtown Ronnie Brown.
So he's been with me for 20 years since I started the team. And, the Indy Thunder, I made our old logo, which was thunder and lightning and big old dark clouds and stuff. And now we have a new logo. I'll get to that later. But, we've had that. And we bring it back every now and then with some of our jerseys. But we now have a brand new logo. But, I just artworked and played with it and everything and just came up with it and stuck with me. So, if you look up, Ron is man. He's been with me since I've been knowing Ron since 1985, and since then, he knows how to. Oh man.
Are you moving around while you're talking? Every once in a while, you're cutting out on me.
Hear me now? I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. No, you're clear.
But
right.
Man, just through it all, even he'll call me out on things, and we may agree to disagree, but we always come to a happy medium. And I respect his opinion on everything, but we may agree to disagree. But he's my guy. Though I would go in the foxhole with him or whatever. Whatever that saying is.
Yeah, so, I feel you.
But go ahead. That's all I mean. Like I said, you can cut me off anytime.
No, you're good. You're good. I'm a big fan. I've been playing against Ron Brown. I've been playing against Ronnie Brown forever, man. So
right.
You talk Ronnie Brown up. Did you? Cause the first year you brought the Thunder back was 2001. Is that correct? Am I right?
Well, the Thunder was formed in January of 2000. And, we played around, and we joined the league in 2001 where we couldn't go to Taiwan,
right.
Obviously. So, and our first World Series was 2002. And then through the financial reasons, we missed the World Series in 2003. And then ever since 2003, since we missed the World Series in 2003, we've been to the World Series ever since. So
I know you mentioned that you, like some of the guys that had played with some of the Chicago teams or whatever, were between like 91 and 2001. Were you playing, and who'd you play with?
Yeah, I played with like some of the Chicago teams. It was a band-aid of teams like the Windy City teams. I played a lot with. Oh my gosh, man! I can go back. I know I played with a lot of people from Chicago. I played with some people from Chicago, like Marvin Aldridge, and
I remember Marvin.
All those guys, and we played with. We just blended some of the indie people that still want to play.
I got you.
People, so it was just sort of a quote unquote a band-aid type,
right.
type thing. Never really practiced, and we got together for World Series and some we got together for some scrimmages and stuff like that, because back then, I'm sure probably the Texas teams were probably scrimmaging each other in Texas, but there really weren't any regional tournaments. Probably, I don't think there was any regional tournaments until 2001. When I could be wrong, so if I'm wrong, I apologize. But when I started our tournament, and then when Bolingbrook started their tournament, so we both started our tournaments in 2001, where where we had, my tournament was with 4 teams only at the time, and then it slowly expanded to 6, and now where it is now is 8 teams. So, and then as 2001 on, with just tournaments just kept popping up.
That's funny. I actually had that in my notes. I was going to bring up your tournament later, but we could jump into it now. It's odd that you didn't think there is like a regional tournament in that area around, because I had thought, back in the 90s, and I believe it started back in the 80s, Oklahoma City used to host a tournament every June. Like the third, fourth weekend of June every year, and before like your tournament and the Chicago tournament, that was like the biggest tournament around or whatever. And I had always assumed, and that's what I was going to ask you, I thought maybe you intentionally picked up that ball when the Oklahoma City group ran out of gas.
No, I mean Oklahoma's still a lot further west from Indiana.
Well, yeah, I hear you, I guess, but for me in California, that's like Central Time, or whatever, you know what I mean? It's both kind of Midwest, South, or whatever. For us, that was a regional tournament, Oak City, Indiana, whatever.
I understand. Yeah, no, yeah. Let's just say around the Midwest, because Cleveland started their tournament, and I mean Columbus had a tournament.
Columbus, right.
And I think they started their tournament like in 02 or 03, and it lasted till about 05 or 06. And I think Cleveland had something for a while in the early 2000s, and then
right. I'm here to tell you, none of them were as big as the OKC tournament. OKC's tournament was what your tournament is now. They would have 8 teams every year. It'd be the first 8 teams that got in, and it would be Houston, Fort Worth, OKC, Austin, Chicago Cobras. You know what I mean? That was a fat tournament, man. That was a fat tournament.
How long was, just to ask you a question, how long was OKC a team from what year to what year? Do you know how long were they around?
Man, they were around. I got my first World Series was 87.
Yeah, like mine
the first one I was a spectator in 86 in Palo Alto, because that was only like 2 hours from here.
87 was my first one in Ithaca, New York.
Yeah, that was my very first tournament also. So OKC had been around for a few. I know Tim was pitching in like 83, 84 or something like that. Right. Then he left, and they had Harry for a long time, and then Tim came back in like the mid 90s. So they went from 80, like early to mid 80s, until like 2005.
Oh, they were 2005. They were around until 05. So.
Well, I'm just talking about their team. I'm not sure when they hosted their last tournament. Right. That I don't know.
Like the mid 80s to 05.
I'm not positive their own tournament went is that long. I'm not positive. I'd have to ask Benny Meyer or somebody. I'm not sure, but I'm guessing somewhere in the early 2000s was the last OKC tournament. Right. But before you guys started having your tournament in the Chicago, you know what I mean? That the OKC tournament was the tournament. That was the only tournament that had like 8 teams, and it had like 4 of the top 6, 7 teams each year were there. So that was a mean tournament, man.
Right. So no, whatever you want to ask me next is fine. But no, I just, like I said, we've been having our tournament since this 01, and then next year will be our 20th year when we'll be both Chicago's will be their 20th year holding the tournament. So
I never realized until you brought that up that you guys started the same year.
01, yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, those are 2 really, really good tournaments. Something that I'm really impressed about with your tournament, dude, how'd you get your tournament on TV, man? That's big. That's big time. I don't think you get enough credit for that.
Let's go back a little bit. I want to talk about, I don't know, whatever you want to ask me about the tournament, or we could talk about tournaments. You may have whatever you're in your show notes. But as far as our tournament goes, we had like 4 teams at the beginning. The pillars of our team was the Thunder, and it was the Scrappers, the Comets, and the Vipers, the Columbus Vipers for a long time. Right. So those were the 4 teams that played every year up until Columbus disbanded or whatever. So we still have Cleveland, Chicago, and Indy Thunder are the three main pillars, and then RHI they had a team now. It's the Indy Edge. So, and like I said, so building from 4 to 6 to 8. Number one, it takes a lot of dedication. It takes a lot of volunteers, to expand from 4 to 6 to 8.
Right.
It takes a lot of sponsorship. And with our tournament, like the Chicago tournament, I mean, one day maybe we'll get there, but they have like a Lions Club that fundraisers for their tournament. Myself here in Indy, it's just a lot of sponsors that I have, and it's called building relationships and having good relationships with people, because relationships are real key as far as I'm concerned when you're building a tournament and even having an organization or what have you. But just building a good relationship with people and not being afraid to be told no. And, because if one door closes, another door opens. And so that just is real key. So, like, a lot of teams have been with us throughout 20 years of sponsorship, whether it's in-kind donations or financial donations. And we've, there's some that we don't have, and there's a lot that we do have as far as new sponsors, old sponsors, or what have you. Some have closed because their businesses went away, but they may still support financially through an in-kind donation or check or what have you. But it's about taking that leap of faith and being, I'm not, like I said, giving, but going out there and just presenting beat baseball to people and telling them what it's about. Once you get them to support your team, what I do is I ask them, please come out and see what you give your dollars to. Please come out and see what you're supporting. And like this, one of our lunch sponsors, like, she just saw our 4 teams there. She's like, hey, these guys need to eat some food. We need to feed these guys. Right. So it's like, if you could add up all the in-kind donations over our 20 years of having a tournament, it's amazing. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, and those guys, and then what I acknowledge the teams to do if they're starting tournaments and stuff like that, and not afraid. You have to have some people, you need your help and all that stuff. But what I do is encourage somebody, no matter if it's an in-kind donation or a financial donation, is to sit down and write a thank you note.
Oh, yeah. No, you gotta recognize the people who are looking you out. But, man, I gotta stop you for a sec, because you've been going for a minute and you come nowhere near answering the question I asked.
What was your question?
Dude, I was asking about your tournament. You have it on at least the championship games on TV, correct?
Yeah.
I was asking how you pulled that off. I think that's big time.
I pulled it off. Well, basically, it's like I knew a friend of mine that was with our team, who used to work with the Indianapolis Indians, the AAA team of the Pirates, and he said, "Hey, I have this. I'm working for this new network. It's called ISC Sports Network, and hey, I'll give you the name. You go ahead, because once they give me a lead, I take it and run with it and do what I got to do with it and everything like that." So we got it. I mean, it was somebody that I knew, but I had to. He was just working for the TV network. So right. I sat down, we had a meeting with them, talked to them about it, gave them our donation letter, told them about our team, told them they can Google Beat Baseball, they can Google the Indy Thunder, how long the Indy Thunder has been in the Indianapolis area, because they're not based in Indianapolis, they're based out of Lafayette, Indiana. Okay. So like us from Indianapolis, that's where they're based out of. Uh-huh. So, and then they're like, okay, let's see what this is about. So they Googled it and checked it out, and then we negotiated. I negotiated a nice, fair deal for our team and for the sport to be on TV. So, and that's how that came about. And then this year they came back and said, it was broadcast live all across the internet and everything like that, and across several counties in Indiana. But this year it's going to be shown live. Live. There's no tape delay this year.
All right, cool.
It'll be pretty cool like that if we decide to have it. But it's not looking real good. But they are a partner of our team, of our organization. So they love Beat Baseball.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. And I mean, it's like this is a total sports network where they do high school football, high school basketball, college football, college basketball, D2, and they're expanding as well. So we have a good partnership with those guys. So it was pretty cool, and they just raved about it, when they saw it. And they had 4 cameras and everything, and we supplied color analyst, and they had the play-by-play guy, and it was just really, really cool. So it's good to have that partnership with them.
And if the game's able to take place this year, DB's going to be doing the color. Is that correct?
Yeah, our board voted on DB to do the color and that. I mean, yeah. So yeah,
I give you 2 thumbs up for that. I mean, for one, like I'm a sports junkie. I'm a radio junkie. I've been listening to sports on radio for the last 40 years, and whether it's TV or radio, I consider the best color analysts the guys that have played the game. Guys, gals, whatever. It doesn't matter. People who have played the game make the best analysts, in my opinion. Not all of them are good. Not all of them deliver it well. I'm not saying they're all good broadcasters, but I would rather have an ex-player or even a current player that's just not playing at the moment. I'd rather have a player giving me color analysis than anything else. And when I had more of a voice with our league, the NBBA, I pushed for DB to be part of the championship game broadcast because he's good at it. Like when he's just sitting with Andrea doing live streaming or somebody else, at the World Series, like he's really good at that. You know what I mean?
Great job in 2016. They did a great job. I went back and listened to it. They did a great job. DB he's been spot on. This guy, talking about a historian, he has probably a ton of stuff, a ton.
Dude, he's got that little bitty head, but he keeps a lot of knowledge in there. Yeah.
And then now that the ISC potentially, probably not this year because of what's going on in the world, but the NBBA now has shown an interest in perhaps having ISC to do our World Series one day. We'll see if that happens.
Oh, cool.
What happens there.
So kind of circling back to more what the show's about, but big thumbs up to you on your tournament. Oh, there is something I wanted to say when you were talking about hosting a tournament, and when you talk to people about hosting a tournament, because I spent a lot of years working as part of the tournament committee, and sometimes when cities were interested in putting a bid on hosting the World Series, like something not from me, but sometimes some of the feedback a city would get is maybe they should try hosting a regional tournament before doing the World Series tournament, and I just don't think that's like a realistic ask. You know what I mean? Like, and I think you're one that should be able to acknowledge that it's like it would be so hard for a city in the middle of nowhere to host a regional tournament because of how much teams pay already just to go to the World Series. Like, if getting to a regional tournament isn't pretty affordable, or if you don't have really good sponsorship, you know what I mean? They're just not going to be able to, like, teams just can't. Go ahead.
That's how I, as far as I look at our athletes, volunteers, or whatever, and when I go in to negotiate with a hotel or what have you, I sit down. Number one, I talk to them about Beat Baseball. I have our donation letter. I tell them what our stuff is about. But, and I just lay out the facts, because I do have facts when I go in there and talk to hotels. The unemployment rate for blind and visually impaired is 70%. It's just
right. I did a lot of site visits for the NBBA tournament committee, and that's something I would put out there. It's like, I would go to a city and they would have like 6-7 hotels lined up, and 2 or 3 would be in the $100 range, and 4 or 5 would be in that $150-$60 range. And I would tell them right off the bat, it's like, you could take us on a tour of that hotel, and we'll be nice and polite, and you could give us cookies or whatever. But
Right.
our crowd's not going to $150 a night.
No, no.
Period.
So you just gotta
It ain't happening.
gotta meet in the middle. You gotta negotiate with them, and I'm real good about negotiating with our hotel. We got a great hotel here, and and all the that gives us a great price, and then so it's about negotiation and just trying to work things through, and you if you think you always want to try to come back a couple of times, but if you get it right off the bat, that's great too. But you always want to try to work with them, and then they can see. And another thing about our tournament and stuff, and what is the longevity we've been here in the city. We've been here in our
no, that helps. That helps.
longevity, and it's not just a flash in the pan type of thing. 20 years, we are a staple. Here in Indianapolis, and then just call it as it is, and I'm glad that there is another team here, the Indy Edge and everything. So I respect them totally, and then some of those guys that used to play for my team and be a part of our organization, they had, it was a different philosophy, which I don't understand. I'm not. I respect their philosophy because I eventually, I had DB and I had Richie Schultz, who was like was like out of high school, fresh out of high school, really didn't have nowhere to play. Not sure where the Chicago team was back in 01 or 02 or whatever. I think the 02 03, I think Chicago, but make a long story
they were
short,
kind of transitioning from fast. They were the Comets, but they were kind of at that time they were kind of a combined Atlanta / Chicago team, and they're transitioning to the Chicago Comets.
I know those guys, hey. We don't mind having you because I was just getting started, didn't have a lot of people around the Indy area or Indiana or whatever. So, but I eventually, when I said, hey, I was told DB and Richie, hey, I would recommend you go back and play for your home team in Chicago or whatever, because that's where you were at. I mean, even though DB lives like about an hour and a half or 2 hours from Indy, he played with me for several years and just couldn't get up there or whatever. So that's why. It'll never happen, but I always would say, I'm an opponent to 80% of your roster should come from your home state, and then about 20% should be coming in those connecting states. But I know that's never going to happen, either here nor there.
I don't think it's fair to put any kind of percentages because different areas have different different opportunities, and you're going to limit teams that can't help, whatever.
And no fault of ours, but Texas is a big old state. So I don't care if you're playing for Austin, Houston, San Antonio, or whoever. That's just the way it is, or College Station. That's just the way it is. But I know that's not going to ever happen. But but respecting what the Edge wanted to do, we wanted to try to keep our team as much as Indiana homegrown as possible, because we represent the whole state of Indiana, and I'm sure the Edge does a lot of stuff with Indiana, but our team, with your dad and Avery, who's like an hour and a half from us, but as far as all player wise, we're about 95 to 97% all of Indiana, if you follow what I'm saying.
No, I do, and I, believe me, I think that's cool as all get out. I wish when we were the Dogs that everybody thinks that we just set out to want to handpick players from whatever. When we were getting players from other areas, it's because we didn't have them here locally, period. We needed to fill out a roster. We would have local kids come out, and they just weren't sticking. They didn't want to commit to the World Series. We didn't have sponsorships, so anybody that played for us had to pay. You know what I mean? And we just didn't bring them in, man. So, but believe me, I wish we had the bodies you did. The success we could have had over a longer period of time if we just had more bodies locally. I think and
the is that I think California's going for the Lions in San Francisco, right?
Fremont, yeah, it's outside of San
So
Francisco.
anyway, our school, the blind school's here in Indianapolis, and it's right there in the center. And I worked at the blind school for like almost 20 years, and we had a lot of resources. I had a lot of kids there because a lot of the adults now, young adults and kids, a couple kids, a lot of I've coached these guys in other sports like wrestling, like track and field. So I knew the pedigree, stuff like that. So I think, and I'm just like you, man. I'm a sports junkie. Over 40 something years I've been involved in sports, and I've worked for sports people and everything like that, for being a producer or a board operator for ESPN radio several times, stuff like that. So I've been there, and like I said, I credit, my success from several coaches like Coach Moneymaker, Coach Shively, Coach Lynch, Coach Kelly. A lot of those guys, they taught me.
Oh,
And then
I don't know any of those people.
Right, no, well,
I don't know who you're talking about.
you don't know any of those people, but those people that have taught me how to coach a team, and I took a lot of them from both, because when I coached wrestling at the blind school, I won 3 straight conference championships in a row.
Very nice.
But then transitioned over to beat ball. But it's like, but a lot of these guys I coached in wrestling, but I knew their competitive spirit, and they wanted to get after it. I mean, with the kids we have now, I call them kids, even though they're adults and young adults, like Eric and Tyler. I coached those guys in wrestling before,
Right.
I coached Miguel Tello in wrestling before, so I knew what those guys were. Right. So introduced them to beat baseball and stuff like that. But
it's a good way to, most of the time, when we're finding beat ball people, you might just run into another blind person at like a bus stop and invite them out to a practice or whatever. Yeah. But getting them when they're young and seeing like their athletic side, right. That's a big plus, man. That's a good farm system to have.
Yeah, I mean, even that. I mean, and like I said, going back to when I played, when Jan. I learned a lot of stuff from Jan because she took me in, and
right.
I was a kid at 18, man, and I was, grew up where I came from was not the best of environments and stuff like that. So I can relate to those kids today not being in the best environment, because our mission statement is to have people to play that are economically challenged and everything, but also teach them how to be responsible and teach them how to have structure in their life and everything like that. That's what helped me through all this, man, because I wouldn't be anywhere without structure, without showing how to do this and being accountable for things and just work for things. And because, I'm telling you, man, that's how I think I work on my craft every day, as far as being a coach and a general manager and everything about Beat Baseball. That's why our organization is what it is. And let me just tell you this, our turning point of the Indy Thunder, and I know I saw your show a couple of weeks ago when you're talking about a brick house, a straw house, or whatever. A brick house is on a sound foundation, right?
Right.
So our turning point of the Indy Thunder was 2010, after the 2010 season going into 2011, where there's a transition because things happen. People left and formed other teams, and they did approach Mr. Brown and some of these people, but Ron stayed with me, and we, that in our 20-year history of the Indy Thunder, the 2011 season was the only time in our history that we fell out of the top 10. We were always a top 10 team. And in 2011, we finished 12th. And that was the only time. We could have finished 9th or 10th. If you go back and look at the records, we only fell out of the top 10 one time in our history. That was a transition year. So either we were going to fold or have a brick sound foundation. So that's
I actually was going to bring that up, and not in it like I have no desire to bring up teams' dirty laundry or anything. But bringing it up from the standpoint, I think it's good for teams that are getting started now and they're struggling, I think
Yeah.
it's good for them to hear. It's like I'm guess I don't know the time frame, but I'm guessing that's when the RHI Extreme
Right.
started in that. And I could tell you, like, because I was a player on another team in another state, so I was on the outside looking in, and I could tell you a lot of players around the country, just like me, when all those players like were gone and started RHI, we looked at the Thunder like, well, they're done. They can't even go to the World Series, and
Right.
then boom, you're right back at the World Series again with more players.
Yeah. And like I said, you gotta. I mean, like a lot of teams, like when I had our team started, I don't have the resources that the teams have now. And I've reached out to every team. I say, how can I help you? I give them my donation letter for a template. I said, I can meet you halfway on things. If you guys do this, I'll do it the other half. Like if you guys want me to come there and show you guys how to sit for a weekend, run a team, give you all the paperwork on everything to do, or show you how to, to get volunteers and how to go out there and grab sponsorship. So I'm willing to work with every team I possibly can to help this league to be as strong as it is now further down the road. I'm willing to do all that. I mean, I'm still learning even as what position I'm in today, but I'm also willing to help I went out to San Gabriel Valley. I mean, I went out to Vegas and helped the Vegas team and saw San Gabriel Valley out there. So
Awesome.
helping the St. Louis team, the firing squad, and things
Right.
like that. I mean, I'm willing to do all that besides still making sure that our team is focused on where we need to be, because you got to have great people in your organization. And in order to win a championship from the top to the bottom, I feel like not only for me, from the top all the way to the bottom, you have to be accountable, and you have to work well with people. Like from 2000 to 2010, Neil, I was doing it all. And so I sat down with Ron, and Ron said, hey, Book, you're going to have to change some stuff. Like, you're going to have to have a board of directors, because you just can't do it all. And it's, believe me, that was another turning point in our organization, forming a board of directors and having good people, and you're going to agree to disagree on the board, just come to a happy medium. And so that, but now, and then also the coaching staff I have, is championship pedigree with Ron and Jared, and as my coaches, and then we added Jerry this year. Jerry came with our team, and then he left, and now he's back again. So just having those guys, and help. We got one coach that's like Ron Brown is the elder statesman. Me, I'm sort of in the middle. Jerry's sort of in the middle now as a stats guy. And then Jared's like, he's with that young generation. And just having those guys around with championship pedigree, knowing what it takes to win a title, that's really that. I'm so blessed to have those people around me.
Yeah, and I know it works in both ways. When you were talking about having been doing everything and then kind of building out the board, and that's ultimately kind of what we did with the dogs. Like the very very beginning parts of the dogs was Don and I getting together, and then bringing in Seth and Eric, and then eventually expanding out to Henry and Mike Finn, and and bringing on it built over the years, but the very very beginning part of it was like Don and I, and when I've talked to other teams that are trying to build a team, like I try to get them used to the fact that at least for a while, it's going to take somebody like you, Darnell, or like me, or whatever, who just wants it more than everybody else does, and doesn't quit because like other like new teams could look at the Thunder and say, well, we don't have a committee like that, so we can't do it that way. It's like, yeah, man, neither did the Thunder 20 years ago. You know what I mean? It's like that stuff has to build up, and for it to like get there, like one or two people have to just grab it and say, you know what? no matter what, I'm going to run with this thing and
Right.
give it a chance, and that person's never appreciated. You know what I mean? It's like they're never going to get credit. People are always going to be upset that the uniforms aren't good enough, that the practice wasn't there. You know what I mean? Everybody's going to have an opinion, but but every team needs a few people that just say, forget it, and just run with it. You know what I mean? And otherwise, it just will fizzle out eventually. You know what I mean? You gotta have a good backbone.
You do, man. I mean, and when I look at Neil, you're gonna have one. I'm gonna have one. It's called, when you leave this place, you want to have a legacy. You want to, I mean, yes, we all have our flaws and this, that, and the other, but the bottom line is you want to have a legacy. You want something to be remembered by. And so this is my passion. This is my legacy. I mean, I've been involved in a bunch of sports, whether it be sided, because I played intramural basketball or whatever and learned from a country. But my passion and my legacy will be beat baseball for the state of it, for beat baseball in general, but for right here in the city, and to build on that. I mean, good, bad, and indifferent. If people are going to like me, I got to understand I got to be tough-skinned to wear the black hat, and I wear the black hat a lot of times even with my own team, but that's the way it goes. I mean, we're so successful, and I'm so blessed. Like I said, I'm sitting in my room right now talking to you, looking at all the accomplishments that we're so blessed with, whether it be being recognized by the Indianapolis Colts, as a championship caliber team. I mean, then getting a lot of the sponsorships, and I mean, just like I said, building relationships, man. And I mean, hey, I know I know I was told sometimes. I mean, it's not about me, Neil. It's about my team. It's about my organization. But I was told, somebody said, I'm not going to mention their names. They just said, hey, if I didn't toot my own horn, I would be golden. I'm not tooting my own horn. Focusing on my team, focusing on my passion, focusing on beat baseball, how to make it right for my players, organization. And like I said, I had to work my butt off this past season because we got a Nike deal. I don't know if you know, the Nike shoe deal. I'm not sure if you were.
I think Jared mentioned that. Somewhere that was mentioned. I have heard that.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's impressive.
The NBA gave me the Nike rep, but guess who had to do the heavy lifting? They just gave me their name. I had to do the heavy lifting because I do whatever I can for my team, for my organization to get where we need to get to. I mean, and I'm not saying I can help any other team if they want to try to get that done. I can try to help them with that. I'm all about helping everybody in the league to reap the fruits and benefits that our team has, and we're so fortunate and blessed. Like I will always tell my team, you never know who's watching, and I tell them that for a reason.
Darnell, let's be honest for a minute, though. I mean, you bring up this Nike thing, and you said, man, I had to do the heavy lifting. Darnell, man, Nike is interested in sponsoring your team. Do you want anybody else under God's green earth, on God's green earth, to go negotiate that other than you? Do you want anybody other than you working directly with Nike?
I mean,
you sound like you got stuck with it, like, I had to do the heavy lifting. Man, shut up. You loved every minute of that. It wouldn't have had it any other way.
But if anybody else out
Poor
there,
you.
Anybody else wants to, I mean, I can help them. Try me. I can help them from afar. I can't fly to their city and close the deal. But
nah. You know what your boy Bam Bam calls it with you? Calls you relentless.
Well,
you're like a badger. You just won't quit.
No, I never
keep coming back.
I never rest to my better's best until my best is better, man. I will never rest. And shout out to Henry Wofford, man. He was here, and when he moved to Indianapolis, we got along real well. We hung out quite a bit. Henry talked about you guys all the time.
Henry's our boy. I want to reach out to Henry. I haven't talked to him for a while, but he's our boy. And I know when he was working there on TV in Indianapolis for the NBC station, if I remember right, man, he told me you're hitting him up all the time.
And then he's a great guy. He's genuine. He's real. He's
fake. Henry's good people, dude. Man, so while I have you, I want to wrap this up because speaking of Bam Bam, we did this defensive show a few weeks ago, and I hope that we certainly weren't trying to sound like experts on the Thunder defense, but hopefully Seth did a good job, a respectful job of laying out what you guys do. The Thunder defense, whose master plan is that? How'd your team defense evolve?
I give that to Jared. He's our pitcher, but he's our defensive coordinator. So we went to the triangle defense because we played it differently before Jared came on board with us in 2016. So I always listen to my coaches, and Jared did a lot of stuff because he works with those guys. I hit rockets to him, but Jared hits balls to him too. But he works with those guys on angles, and we have two in the front. And it's that triangle defense where three on the left, three on the right.
Right.
And here's our setup. Like from January to March, all we do is indoor practice, hit. And then when we get outside in the spring, we do probably about 30 minutes of hitting, but the majority of that time is working on our defense. I'm a defensive-minded coach anyway. I always tell me we got great players on our team that hit and stuff like that, but I always tell people, hey, Houston or San Antonio, you can out-hit them all you want, but if you can't stop anybody,
right,
then that's what's going to happen. So we had a shirt made up on our team that said defense must travel. I still have that. And some of those guys have that. They won but a lot of these guys are offensive minded. A lot of these guys are two-way players, but our defense, Jared sets our defense up, and he works with those guys on angles, and they work at it. They really do. They really get down and know how to take angles on them. So you'll hear Jared sometimes if you go back and listen to broadcasts, even this past World Series, about the angles and stuff, and he gets those guys in the right position because he's Jared. Of course, Jared studies the game as well as anybody.
That dude, I don't even know study, man. It's just in his blood. You know what I mean? He's been around beat ball since before he could probably remember anything else.
Exactly. So Jared he's our defensive coordinator. Ron Brown's our offensive coordinator because getting those guys, in the right, getting them batting and stuff like that. So our defense is predicated on angles and cutting things off and a lot of communicating. And even though we have some very, 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 very excellent spotters, those guys, I'm telling you, Manil, those guys are athletic. They get after it. They move. They talk. They communicate, and it's all about. And they. Like I said, I've never met. I was only thinking one championship was good. I am so fortunate and blessed. I pinch myself every day with 4 titles, man. And the title that I really admire the most, nothing against all the other 3 titles, is the gauntlet we had to come back to in 2017. When we lost to San Antonio on Thursday morning, when you lose, they send you way out of mind and out of sight on a way back field. and we had to literally. We played 11 games that year, and we had to beat Taiwan twice. And, it was just bittersweet, man, because that tested our mettle, that tested to see how do we defend our title. And, and like I said, our team handles adversity really, really well in the sense of that. Because I told them I didn't want to hear anything about Saturday at all. When we lost to San Antonio that Thursday, I didn't want to hear anything about it. It was one game at a time.
All right.
What we did. So, and credit to the competition, credit to what we had. So that was, to me, that's the most, that was the hardest World Series, but that was the sweetest one because also, I'm not sure if you know, like I said, you never know who's watching. The film crew came and there's a documentary going to be out about our team probably in the next several months or so. It's been worked on. They've been following our team since 2016. So, we will be like Boston had a documentary about their team, so have a documentary about the Indy Thunder coming soon.
Dude, you sound like you're wrestling something over there now.
Does it? How about
No, you're good, man. No, I don't think the newer players realize how few times that's been done as far as the team coming up through the losers bracket and winning 2 on Saturday. it's been done so few times. Unfortunately, it was done once. I was on the field once when it was done. Shout out Chicago Comets 03. They defeated the Dogs twice. I didn't think any team would ever defeat the Dogs twice in one day, so that knocked me back. But, overall in the 44-year history, I don't know how many times it's been done, but it hasn't been a lot. I know Albuquerque did it in like 88, I want to say. But overall, though, I just say it hasn't been done a lot. Usually, the team that gets to, even if the team that has 2 losses wins a game, they don't often win both of the games. So, I mean, that's a tough feat. So I don't blame you for being proud of that. It's hard to win a championship, and that is a hard road to come through.
Well, also going back to tournaments, I want to say for the new teams, when you do have a tournament, but just to remember, I always say, without volunteers, beat ball wouldn't happen. So you want to take care of your scorekeepers, your umpires, and people that give of their time to come out and make your tournament what it is, because without those scorekeepers and umpires, we wouldn't be able to play. So you always want to make sure you take care of your officials and stuff like that. So that's why a lot of my volunteers that are on my roster, about 6 or 7 of them are with the national or with the World Series during beat ball time, So we lose a lot of our volunteers because they're good at what they do as far as scorekeepers goes and hiring goes. So, I just want to let the teams know to just make sure that you try in some way, shape, or form to take care of your officials when you do a turn. And if you need help on that, I'll be glad to share that with you, and just just to make sure that they're not left out, because like I said, without volunteers, beat ball wouldn't happen. And whether they're core volunteers or just associates of your team, you want to make them feel welcomed and appreciated and everything like that. And that's what I try to do as much as possible. Yes, some volunteers have come and gone, but they and then I always try to. It's just you just really want to. I really want to drive that point home.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Even though this is this show, nothing about hosting tournaments. No, I'm kidding.
But
I'm kidding. No, I think overall, man, the sport just can't happen without everybody coming together. It's one thing that is unique about our sport is how it joins both abled and disabled together, sighted, blind together, for working on the same goal together. So I do feel like there needs to be an appreciation and gratitude going both ways. You know what I mean? Because it like you say, without all of it coming together, we can't play our game. So you definitely have to have an appreciation for the entire picture.
And I'll be glad, Neil, to talk. If anybody wants to reach me offline, you have my information and stuff. But everybody in the league has my information. They know how to get a hold of me if they want to know more how to build teams and how to help them with stuff. I'll be glad to reach out and help those guys. What's it take to start a team? What do you need? What resources can you get and everything like that? I'll be glad to help them in any way, shape, or form, because I eat, sleep, and drink beat ball, and I'm fortunate that my job, what I do, supports my team and allows me to do this, and they really love our sport. So I'm fortunate to have a great employer that accepts what I do.
Well, that was a good note to end the show on. That was one reason I wanted to come you on. I wanted you to come on the show. I know you love the show. I mean, just like myself, people haven't always, might not always appreciate my delivery or my approach or whatever. But man, it can't ever argue that at least my heart was fighting for the sport, and I know that you're always in that same category. I know you love this game that I love so much, and and I'm impressed with all the success you've had, especially with your team. So, man, congratulations on that. Continued success. I really hope you guys are given the opportunity to defend. I can't imagine. I mean, I know we're living in unique times, but I can't imagine how I would have felt if when the Dogs were right in the middle of of doing their best, their putting out their best product, and if we wouldn't have been given the opportunity to play. So, man, I'll keep my fingers crossed for you guys, because you deserve it, until somebody knocks you off, you deserve the opportunity to defend your championship.
All right, thank you, Neil. I appreciate you having me, and I appreciate everything you do for Beat Baseball, and I appreciate this show that you're doing. And hopefully we'll see you at a field real soon. But thanks a lot for having me, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
My pleasure. Appreciate it, Book. All right, everybody. That's it. Whoa! Drop the phone.
Finish. Button.
Oh, but we still got it happening. Thanks, everybody. I've got an exciting show in mind for next week. Either way, we're going to have an exciting show, but I hope it's the show that I want to have. Hope it comes to fruition. Everybody have a safe week. Be smart, be safe, and healthy out there. And we will see you next Sunday. Good night, Aunt Cindy.